Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bitcoin Treasuries World number 51 with the launch of SWC Roundtable, which is three people who have invested in SWC, are excited about this stock and see a lot of upside. And we just get together and talk about that and happily sharing that. And none of it is financial advice. It's financial education / information at best. That's what it is. Khristina and Zynx, good to see you guys here. Great conversation already in the green room the last 10 minutes here. How are you guys doing? And welcome.
Doing great. Happy to be here. Happy to chat smarter web and whatever else comes up.
And yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Extremely happy to talk about smart web.
It's a special story for you, Zynx, isn't it? Since you were there from the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Since IPO, the 25th of April, from a 3.7 million market cap all the way to the highs of over £1 billion, back down to £300 million market cap, to watch the community grow from 10 members to over 4,400. Yeah, it's pretty much where I built sort of my platform, really, just by giving smart web analysis. So many great guys in the community, but yeah, it's been a story for me for sure.
Awesome. And Khristina, we can do like around the table here, our story with SWC, I guess. What's your
Yeah, so I was later to the story because I was so focused on MetaPlanet in early May. And then with the hype around all of the Bitcoin treasury companies, I dove into smarter web. I actually looked back at my trading history before I caught up with James last week and noticed that like in a week period of time, I had bought the stock, and without having the numbers in front of me, somewhere around $1.30. And then 9 or 10 days later, sold it in the sixes. And so just to think of the euphoria that we experienced back in that time frame. But then I did buy shares and I kept buying shares. And my average cost basis is much higher than where we are trading now. And so I've really gone through the process of, okay, did I just jump into this without knowing what I owned? FOMO of missing out, of not owning, all of these Bitcoin treasury companies. And it's become a pretty large position because I was averaging my cost down. And after, diving in and doing more work, I was like, absolutely have conviction, love the story, love the management team, happy I'm an investor, and I'm in it for the long term.
Yeah, and similar with me, obviously not being in it from the beginning. I do recall specifically walking somewhere in the evening, listening to a podcast. It was the first time I heard Andrew, and thinking like this guy sounds pretty reasonable and humble, which is I think always a great sign, and smart, and thinking that's probably going to be good, but I don't know how to get these stocks that are listed on some secondary exchange in UK. But just checking now as we're speaking, I bought MetaPlanet the 2nd of May, and SWC I bought tiny bit of in June the 17th. And I haven't ever sold anything. I haven't been as smart as you, Khristina, as taking chips off the table at a high MNAV. But I've been buying ever since, and all my positions are below water, but I am still sitting here smiling because I am incredibly bullish, and I see a lot of upside. And I've been looking forward to this conversation with you guys really ever since we did a roundtable on MetaPlanet, which I thought was really good conversation. So excited for the future here for SWC.
Yeah, I just looked at my account, and of the shares that I didn't trade and I just kind of have held, my first purchase of those was July 16th. So $3.35 a share. And then been buying it, kind of all the way down into kind of mid and end of September. So it's become a fairly large position, as I've said, but it's one that, and especially this time of year, I think a lot of people, at least in the US, I don't know how the tax situation is in other countries, but start to look at their portfolio and think, okay, where may I possibly take tax losses to offset capital gains? And we have a wash sale rule here where if you sell a security, if I sold my smarter web today and took a big loss on it, I wouldn't be able to buy it back for 30 days, or else that loss I can't realize. And so people do try to manage taxes starting in the fourth quarter. But after really digging in, I'm like, I'm not going to sell this. I'm just going to keep it. I like the story. I like the management. I believe in Bitcoin. So it's a hold / add to on further weakness.
Totally. Zynx, anything you want to add? I don't want to jump in on the mic all the time. I want to give you guys good ample opportunity to speak your thoughts.
Yeah, so when it comes to my position, obviously, I've made a lot of money, because I got in at the IPO, which, is obviously very fortunately to be the case. I still have more shares than what I did have from IPO. So, what that tells me and you is that I'm incredibly bullish on the stock. So I have plans to be with this company until we get to the top of the FTSE 100.
Excellent. And speaking of, in terms of catalyst, and I guess overall the sentiment that I have, and I think, but I won't speak for you, one or two of you maybe share that right now risk reward of SWC to me could be the most appealing across the globe in all capital markets. And I'm not saying that there's not others that obviously are fantastic. I just think right now SWC to me is an absolute gem in terms of risk reward. So might as well jump into. I did a few bullet points here that I wanted to cover also, apart from, I know you guys have some thoughts lined up, but in terms of catalyst and the upside, and I think also that's why it makes sense for you, Khristina, not necessarily to sell now and have to wait 30 days before you can buy it back, because this thing could double, if not triple, if not more by that time, right? But there's a likely, I think, London Stock Exchange uplisting in Q4. So that would be within the next 3 months, which will, as we know from Andrew when he was on here last Wednesday, that will unlock quite a bit of capital. So that will drive further Bitcoin purchases, yield for the existing shareholders, more Bitcoin per share. Then there's the FTSE 250, which I think probably in terms of size could come very quickly after that. And then the FTSE 100 maybe a little bit further on the horizon. I don't know how far is it, if it's sometime next year or even later, but so that's some of the bullish catalysts I see right now. What about you guys? What did I miss?
Well, Zynx, I will let him speak to it, but he had a post this morning with an incremental data point that helps with the LSE uplisting. So Zynx, why don't you share what you uncovered?
Yeah, so today there was an announcement of an appointment of a non-executive director and essentially an independent non-executive director. Essentially, you need 2 of these to meet the criteria to uplist to the LSE. So we just need 1 more, and from the hiring of the CFO. So there's been steps that are crystal clear to me that an LSE uplisting is coming in Q4. First, we had the change of auditors to FTSE standard, top 10 in the UK. Then we had an appointment of the CFO, who has come from a FTSE 250 company. And then this independent non-executive director, again, from a FTSE 100 company. 1 more and all the criteria, the conditions would have been met. And it's just a matter of doing the paperwork. We have precedent of another company that does Bitcoin mining, has Bitcoin on a balance sheet, and they uplisted to the LSE main market at a £40 million market cap. So we are, almost 10x that, and things are clearly, as per the RNSs, an LSE uplisting is coming.
Nice. And yeah, I don't know how long time it will take, but likely Q4. So that's nice. And I think also when you look at comparing that to other treasury companies, and there's some big catalysts also for Meta Plan and everything, but it just seems like in terms of the relative weight and what it can do, that what SWC is looking at with London Stock Exchange uplisting, it looks very significant and strong.
Right. And I would say that I think Smarter Web's flywheel really seems to be working right now in terms of how they're raising capital and acquiring Bitcoin.
Yeah, and it happened. It's happening almost every day. There's a couple of the guys, and sorry, I don't remember all the names always, but that have done some work at looking at the volume and the price movement, and are able to pretty precisely, I think, figure out how many Bitcoin are mined. Shout out to you guys. You can, if you're on this.
John and Andy, absolute
John
legends. John and Andy, absolute legends.
John Mahoney, the legend.
Yep, and Andy Smith.
And Andy Smith, awesome. Thanks, Zynx. And I think I saw earlier on X that they have mined 3 Bitcoin so far today, SWC, and it all adds up.
It absolutely adds up. And I think, one of the things that struck me when I was talking to Andrew at the Unconference, and we had a little bit of a one-on-one, just asking him briefly about his operating business. And his operating business generates cash flow, right? And it's incremental. And, it's not any big numbers by any means, but he's able to purchase Bitcoin with the cash flow from his operating business.
And that's a positive. That's definitely a positive, and their shout out to John and Andy. So one of the reasons that I right now see SWC as probably the best risk reward globally of all equities is the amount of Bitcoin they have and their upside, because there's no doubt a lot of these treasury companies will be buying a lot of Bitcoin. But going back, I ran a few numbers, and is something I kind of started looking at when I did a keynote in Helsinki on investing in treasury companies. So I need to update that and make a specific show sharing that. But here's the situation, or the part looking at SWC. They right now hold 2,525 Bitcoin with a diluted MNAV of 1.4. The market cap of SWC, the price of the company measured in Bitcoin, which is the only true denominator in my world, the market cap is only 3,535 Bitcoin. And they have a target of acquiring 210,000 Bitcoin. But if they acquire just half of that, 105,000 Bitcoin, that is essentially a 30x outperformance of Bitcoin in terms of value growth. And so it's not just by investing in treasury companies, over time you'll make 20% more or something. And I'm not saying that there's aspects where nothing can compete with Bitcoin and cold storage naturally. But in terms of investment and the part of your portfolio where you go further out on the risk curve, just to run those numbers. So if Bitcoin goes to 25 million, which I believe is a matter of time, then $1,000 invested in Bitcoin will reach 200,000. But with this outperformance, $1,000 invested in SWC today would go to $6 million. And I think that's why we all like these treasury companies if they can perform well. And if they do reach their target, $1,000 invested goes to $12 million. So like, my point is, like, do you see why this is relevant or interesting, to say the least? Thoughts, guys?
So when it comes to the Bitcoin price, who knows where it's going to be? I'm conservative, and I say 2035, $1 million a coin, absolutely take it. Fits within the Bitcoin power law, range. But essentially, what you're talking about is compounding. These Bitcoin treasury companies compounding your Bitcoin per share. And with Smarter Web, for example, I can give you, since IPO, the sats per share was just 2. Now it's 900. So in the space of 5 months, they've 450x'd your Bitcoin exposure. Well, they've increased the sats per share by 450x, which, I don't need to say any more. The numbers speak for themselves.
Absolutely. I
Incredible.
mean, incredible journey. I wish I had been there since the beginning, but I'm still happy if they do 30 or 60x the Bitcoin exposure from here. You add that to your 450, and you'll be laughing. I think you're laughing already, Zynx.
Well, yeah, and it's the thing is, the craziest thing is because it IPO'd so low. This is still base level. This is still very, very early. We're talking about a company that's on the Aquis exchange. It's a 300 million pound market cap. That's Mick. I think I need an accountant. Yeah,
And Bitcoin really hasn't even moved, right?
exactly.
I mean, yes, we hit a new all-time high, but we're not even back to that yet. And we're in October. Maybe we'll hit a new all-time high this month. I mean, I think that's the expectation. But I actually thought we would be much higher today if you were to ask me, in December of last year.
But it's coming. It's coming.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
I did hear October, right, Khristina? Okay.
October.
Okay.
Yes. It's been a good day today.
Yeah. I don't even
Are
recall,
we
but
over 118? I mean, 118 is really kind of the breakout level that I think we need to get over because we've been in this narrow band of kind of 112 to 118. So I think if we're able to move above 118 and kind of sustain that to some extent, we will reach a new leg higher.
I'm of the opinion that the bull run doesn't really count until we get over $151,000, and that is the all-time high for the current gold price, Bitcoin denominated in gold ounces. So, I think Bitcoin's just been lagging, but all the factors are there for an incredible next 6 months, in my opinion.
I'm writing that down, Zynx. I think that's a good data point. I like notes.
We'll take it. So another thing that we spoke about in the green room before we got started, and we've spoken about it before, is the SWC community. I mean, one thing is management. We'll get to management as well, but the SWC community, despite the entire downturn and the stocks being suppressed across the board in this industry, is just like we're still having fun. People are still here to a large extent, and we're just drooling over the upside here. And like I'm in daily communication with the SWC, fellow investors on X, which I don't have really to the same extent in other communities. The feeling I'm getting is like very positive on the SWC community, and like stuff going on, like Andy and John figuring out how to calculate, all right, today how many Bitcoin did we mine, right? And tomorrow we'll get new reports, like several during the days. It's a very strong community, the strongest I can see, in my opinion.
Can I just give you a story about why and talk you through why it is the best community? Because it matters and it's important. So to begin with, remember it IPO'd at 3.7 million pound market cap. It was open to British investors. So, there was a lot of British people that were able to get involved and make a lot of money in the community. People have, had good weddings, they've bought houses, they've retired already, from this company. And other things like there being no discounted raises is very important. We also have, in the UK, we haven't had a British company to get behind since maybe there was a company that wasn't even public. It was called DeepMind, and it was an AI play that got acquired by Google back in 2010, I think. And since then, the FTSE 100, as I told you guys before, over the last 10 years, the CAGR has been 5%. Look, Scottish Mick said the community has changed his life. You see, people are willing to get behind this company. Very, very strong home support. And yeah, it's just been building naturally. Andrew goes to these conferences in the UK. He's willing to speak to the community. He comes to the front even when the stock is down. And it's hard to, explain how much people are behind Andrew, how many the British investors are behind Andrew and SmarterWeb. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And, I think, if you contrast that with the MetaPlanet community, which I'm very involved in and I love, and I think it's a great community, I think what happened there is you had a lot of investors buy all the way up with the huge momentum, and people were just, following posts and not forming their own conviction and not really sure what they were buying. And the stock ran up over $15, and now here we are down in the threes. And so people lost a lot of money very quickly. And I think that really, without having their own conviction, and maybe not sizing their position appropriately. And I think it really, hurt sentiment for that particular group on the back of the Japanese component of it, where the Japanese investors I've described as being a bit more timid. When I spoke to James last week on his podcast, someone shared a data point, and I had just kind of pulled it up, that said 65% of Americans invest, 50% of Canadians, 35% of British, and only 15% Japanese. And so from the Japanese side, timid investors that maybe weren't so used to investing, potentially getting big losses. I think UK is somewhere in the middle between US and MetaPlanet, but it's just it just feels different right now in terms of the sentiment.
I think one point with that, so definitely it says, like, if there's less people investing, I guess part of your point is that the upside is maybe bigger in terms of, or I'm not sure what you're getting at there, but in terms of Japan, I know that a lot of the money not going into stocks is because Japanese love to have half their money in cash, like either under the
7.5 trillion in savings per the presentation that MetaPlanet released last night.
Nice. And for MetaPlanet, that bodes well for prefs, that yes, will still be an investment for people. So will they be willing to go from cash to a cash yielding, pretty secured like principal investment, like basically an account where you deposit your cash and can get potentially a very high return compared to you don't get any returns on anything short term in Japan.
Right, but Zynx made a good point, which he can speak to just in terms of the income on the FTSE versus the CAGR, unless you already brought it up here.
No, I'll touch on that, because I actually think the UK is actually pretty well primed for prefs, and I'll tell you why. But just going back to the community quickly, yes, it IPO'd and it was open to retail investors, but for the first 4, 5, 6 weeks, there was also retail reps, which allowed the company to raise money alongside something called an accelerated book build. So what you would do is he would raise capital, get the institutions, and retail were allowed to partake. So what you had was, week after week, retail investors were able to get on board at the same price as the institutions. And this happened, multiple weeks in a row. And this is why the sentiment was so built, the foundations were so solid. And by that point, we had people creating websites. And, you mentioned about the statistics about the Bitcoin mining that John and Andy post about. Every morning, these guys give me an email that track, and this is for free. These guys love the company. Every morning, I get an email that tracks community members, the location of the community members, trading volume weekly, daily, Treasuries community ranking. They even track Andrew's Bitcoin following, X followers. Like, they track all the data points. You've got a lot of people spending hours, just free time. Obviously, Jamie, that created the community, James, hours just building this thing. So yeah, that's that point. Just going on to the fixed income bit. The UK is extremely unique in the sense that our premier index, the FTSE 100, is well known for having, low growth but high dividends. The FTSE 100 you can expect to get around 3% every year. So people are primed to receiving, income from their shareholdings. The CAGR for the last 10 years has been 5%, extremely low. But, the fixed income, sorry, not the fixed income, the dividends is higher than, let's say, the S&P 500. But also, more importantly, and this is key, when it comes to the distribution of fixed income products, we have two main brokers, HL and AJ Bell. Whereas strategy, they will struggle with their distribution. They've got to talk to a lot of people. Andrew has to talk to two companies, and that will cover 60% of the UK market. And guess who was the head of online at the largest UK broker who built their online platform? Andrew. The way it's gone full circle is absolutely crazy. So he will be able to distribute these smarter preferreds when the time is right through these platforms. And I suspect uptake, when you see 8%, 9%, is going to be fabulous, because they non-stop harass me, these companies, with UK government treasuries. Buy, 30-year gilt, we call our bonds gilts, at 5%. No, thank you. I don't want that insolvent, getting debased. Whereas they imagine they're doing an email now, buy your smarter preferred.
Yep.
You're capturing 60% of the market.
That's like an enormous incremental positive for Smarter Web, because I absolutely agree that strategy in the US has struggled with the right distribution. And I think that, leans into that regulations in the US as it relates to Bitcoin and Bitcoin related investments have only recently eased. And so educating the banks on Bitcoin, let alone a Bitcoin backed preferred, and which bankers are on the deals. And, we have so many firms, large institutional primarily with high net worth departments. And then you have the smaller brokers, and then it's scattered absolutely everywhere. And
she froze.
Yeah, there's been, I think, the heavy trading activity there going on in the household of Khristina sometimes takes a little bit of the internet. We just lost you, Khristina, for the last 10 seconds. If you were making a point, if you don't mind repeating.
Oh, what was I saying? It froze. Where did I leave off?
You were talking about the distribution of the strategy preferreds.
I was just saying that the distribution of the strategy preferreds in the US, I think, has been a real hindrance, just the way that the US is structured across, large institutional banks, high net worth clients, small brokerages, smaller wealth managers. And I don't think there's been any type of concentrated or dedicated effort to actually proactively put these products in front of investors, especially because, banking regulations here have only recently eased as it relates to Bitcoin related investments. And so I think it's going to take some time. So it sounds like what Zynx has just said with respect to the Smarter Web, I mean, that's huge. That's really important.
So
really important.
That will be a strength when the preferreds come. Speaking of preferreds from strategy, they increased the stretch dividend from 10 to 10.25%. So hopefully for strategy, we can start getting closer to $100 for that equity. Otherwise, they have to keep increasing it as per the guidelines, right?
Right.
Which hopefully won't change.
Hopefully it stimulates demand. Maybe they're gonna have to raise it probably a bit higher.
But I also think, raising it might not stimulate demand, because I don't think demand is lacking because the products are lacking. I think demand is lacking because the distribution is lacking. And so until they are able to identify a better distribution channel, they can continue to raise the dividend. And the only people that are really knowing about these products are those of us who follow Saylor and are on X. Like, I really don't think there's this like broad-based effort to educate people side who are focused on, stable, pristinely backed asset, high yielding products. There's just, I doubt that's happening.
And that's why it was a shame. I mean, that's one of the reasons it was a shame that they were not included in S&P 500 this first time around. That would automatically have increased the credit worthiness, credit rating of strategy, and as I understand, it would also automatically spill over to the credit ratingness of any fixed income product they put out there. Hopefully, we'll see it in December. If not December, likely next year.
It will happen. It will happen.
Yeah, it's a matter of time.
And just to relate that back to Smarter Web, in the UK, we don't have that political process. If we reach the market cap, we will be automatically included into the FTSE 250 and then the FTSE 100. So as soon as you qualify, Smarter Web will be, progressed into the next index.
I love that it's a rules-based approach and it's not open to subjectivity by a committee that you don't even know who's on the committee or what their views are, if they're politically biased one way or the other. I mean, it's just, again, another reason that Smarter Web is in a very good position in terms of incremental catalysts and next steps.
Absolutely. Not sure if you know this, Zynx. You're the only one of us actually present in UK. If you know the market size, but I think
trillions. I did a post very early on. I probably should start reposting them, because at the beginning of the IPO, I just made a lot of posts analyzing the UK market, but the UK fixed income market is well over 3, 4, 5 trillion pounds. That's not the issue. We're well primed for these fixed income products. I just wanted to quickly address a lot of the comments tend to be people that are scared about the UK situation right now. I think some people are, oh, well, the UK they see on the news. I just want to say a couple of things to that. Number one, the current government that is in power, they're very unlikely to win the next election. Number two, on the 8th of October, the FCA have now allowed the crypto ETNs. So, there's a slight warming towards Bitcoin and crypto in general. And that was actually stimulated by Smarter Web, because the regulators were like, well, they found a roundabout way to invest into Bitcoin through Smarter Web. So we have no choice but to allow these ETNs. Obviously, the ETNs are not the ETFs. So it's still, I don't know who would buy an ETN, to be honest, but in our taxed privileged accounts, ISAs and SIPs, which has, again, over £1 trillion in them, our only way to get exposure to Bitcoin up until the 8th of October was MSTR and then Smarter Web, these Bitcoin treasury companies. So even still, when we don't have Bitcoin ETFs. And the third final point is, if things ever got so bad, the Brits have lots of overseas territories where tax is 0, British Virgin Islands. Andrew can pick up and take his family and go to Gibraltar, with a master's at hiding money. We still got all our territories in the Caribbean, and it wouldn't be a problem. Worst case scenario, if there was a weird environment in the UK, these territories are autonomous, and that's what people with wealth do anyways. Just headquarter the company here, still be listed in the FTSE, no problem. So when it comes to political risk and anything like that, please do not worry.
I'm curious if I can ask you, Zynx, just being in the UK, like what's the sentiment or investor sentiment or awareness around just Bitcoin as an asset?
It's growing. It's definitely growing. We had, the party that's currently leading the polls, the leader, Nigel Farage, was at the Bitcoin conference in Vegas, and he spoke about lowering tax to 10% if he wins. We also have now plenty of UK Bitcoin treasury companies. We've got Bitcoin Policy UK, with Freddie, they're doing great work. We've also got the Bitcoin Collective, which is a grassroots movement. And we're starting to get more and more events. And, I think it is slowly expanding, and it's definitely on the up. It's probably not, it's not, no, it's not probably, it's definitely not as advanced in the US, But
I would say the US doesn't feel advanced just as a person being here. I mean, yes, I
okay.
guess we are on a relative basis, but sharing a story, I went to my son's back to school night last night at his high school, and I've never been there before because he transferred in from his freshman year. He's now a sophomore going to a new school. And I don't live in the town that the school's in. His dad lives in that town. So I wore a Bitcoin hat thinking, okay, I'm going to go in. I'm going to see if there's any Bitcoiners here. And, just to check it out. So I wore a hat. I was actually the only parent, even the men, that had a trucker hat on. So maybe I didn't get the memo on the dress code. But it was only, and my son's has over 1,000 kids at this school and over 100 like staff members. And then if you think about parents, of course, not every parent came, but there were a ton of people there. The auditorium was filled, and then you went and you followed your child's schedule into each classroom to meet the teachers. It was only the very last class at 9 o'clock at night. And the second teacher was like, oh, is that a Boston Red Sox hat or Bitcoin? Is that a Bitcoin hat? I was like, you're the only person, who brought it up. And it was kind of a test because I think everyone should know about Bitcoin. And he's like, oh, until it crashed. The sentiment is just so negative, but it was literally one person at the very end and not anyone else made a comment.
You see, I mean, and that's in the US, right, where you have a president going to the Bitcoin conference.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's like that, but squared in the UK. And that's why we all spend so much time online, right? Because you come
But
off X.
I almost wonder if, and I haven't checked out other channels, but I do wear a Bitcoin hat a lot. If I go to a concert, I'll like wear it in the parking lot when I tailgate, and we'll like walk around. I'll be like, do you know what this means? Can I tell you? And then I like try to orange pill people just as for fun. But I was getting my nails done in New York City actually before the unconference, and I was talking to the manicurist who is from the Ukraine. And I was asking her if she has to send money to her family. And she said she did. And I was like, well, how do you send it? And, do you know about Bitcoin? And it's so simple. And there's like no middleman and the fees versus, no fees. And she's like, oh, well, do you write a blog? Do you post about it? I said, oh, I'm on, Twitter. There's a great community. She's like, everyone's only on, YouTube and TikTok. She's like, I'm not going to, download Twitter, but I don't know if there is a community of people who talk about Bitcoin on these other social media platforms, but it does feel like there's a huge opportunity to educate people if someone had the energy to do that, which I do not.
Yeah, it is definitely, it goes back to my understanding of things is that, in the West, because our currencies are still terrible, but it's not as bad. It's not a necessity in the sense, well, it is a necessity if you don't want to get poor, but in the sense that people can live their day-to-day lives and inflation is not 20% every month. So if you go to places like Turkey, Nigeria, they will actually, Argentina, they all know about Bitcoin, the general population, whereas in America and in the UK, it's reserved to, the nerds and the financially astute individuals. So, it's definitely going to take another 10x in Bitcoin price before, perhaps it's something that people would consider on the street and they're like, oh, Bitcoin. But yeah, unfortunately, there's always a big percent of the population that just have no idea about investing, and it's quite sad, really. But
It's the same with when I'm in Denmark. I spent about 2 months in Denmark this summer, and wearing this cap, MicroStrategy. Nobody knows that what MicroStrategy is, that they have a Bitcoin strategy of acquiring more Bitcoin. Like no one knows. Like it's still so early. It's really so anyone's here watching this, being exposed to Bitcoin and treasury companies, you are pre-rich likely, but it won't go up in a straight line. We have volatility and you're experiencing it right now. But the three of us are sitting here laughing because the upside from here looks ridiculous.
I know we should get the CEO of Bitcoin to do some like TV commercials.
Yeah, you should. And donate to political parties, etc. One thing we've already spoken about before, how we're happy with management. It really has been flawless execution from day one at the IPO from Andrew and whoever he hired, Jesse, etc.
And he was really bold in his commitment to doing no discounts. You know, that was such a great statement by him. And on a podcast that I watched that he did recently, you know, he's very right. Like, if you give the discount, then the next person wants a discount. Maybe they want more of a discount. And it just, you know, sets this precedence that if you just draw a line in the sand from the beginning and that's your policy,
Yeah,
she'll come back though.
companies should do it. I know Zynx, you feel, you
All
know,
right.
very taking in the right capital at the right time. And he's proven that that's the best model.
He's already been talking about rejecting 200 million pounds worth of capital because it's not on the right terms. You see, you know, with these Bitcoin treasury companies, some people are having the traditional financial, you know, TradFi mindset of this is how things always work. This is a capital market. But if you know what you have and you've got value, they will have to move to your position. And I think Smart Web having this distinctly, you know, outside of, you know, the newer Bitcoin treasury companies having no discounts, you know, as a shareholder, you're going to be protected and looked after. And how the ATM works is, you know, it only works on up days. So if the stock's going down, you know, it's not the ATM. And I think these conditions build so much trust. And when things like MNAV relies on sentiment so much, it's just super important. You know, perhaps you may miss out on some capital, but like you said, he's got the policy from the beginning. If you want to deal with Smarter Web, there's no foolishness. You know, you can't ask for these discounts, and it's become his strength, it's become his anchor, and look what's happened with the community now. It's stronger than ever before. And in this down period, no one has complained about Andrew. Nobody's complained. You know, the whining in the Smarter Web community is non-existent because every week we've got the proof of work. Dr. Bitcoin MD, he posts, you know, he's got a beautiful graphic that shows what we've done every week. You know, he set trends, Andrew. He started doing the weekly updates. You see now everyone's doing them. That's all come from Andrew.
And I think that, you know, policy from the beginning just really set the tone in terms of, you know, a strong moral compass and his ethics, just as it relates to really, you can expand that beyond no discounts, just in terms of how he approaches the business, and he's doing what's in the best interest of the shareholders.
Absolutely. Yeah, we agreed on that. All right. So as I said early on, I see SWC right now as the best risk reward globally among all equities. As it is a roundtable we're doing, let's take it around the table, starting with you, Khristina. Do you see it the same way? What's your thoughts?
I mean, I really like the risk reward of Smarter Web here. And I'll just speak to my own positions, and I think that's probably the fairest way to do it. I can say that if I were allocating more money to any company, any BTC right now, it would be Smarter Web. I would caveat that by saying that Metaplanet is my single largest Bitcoin treasury company, and that I wouldn't be allocating money to it right now only because it's significantly larger than my Smarter Web position. Metaplanet stock is down significantly. And I do think they have, you know, a real opportunity with the preferreds in the Japanese market, which are in the pipeline. But I do think that they have to get these preferreds to market in order to see the stock, you know, move higher and continue to work. And I don't think we have clarity right now on what the timeline is for those products. And so $1 today would probably go into Smarter Web, just because I do think there's more clarity. Their capital raise situation is working. You have the potential catalyst with the uplist and then the FTSE inclusions, and there's not a lot of question marks. Whereas with Metaplanet, although there's a significant opportunity and the valuation is very compelling, the catalysts for Metaplanet right now aren't as clear because we don't have real clarity on the timing of the preferreds, which everyone is waiting for. So I think that's as balanced of an opinion as I can give.
Yeah, no, I love it. Thank you, Khristina. Before jumping to you, Zynx, I just want to comment on that. And a part of that lack of clarity is like we expect the preferreds to kill it for Metaplanet, but we've also seen with strategy where they haven't really broken through and had that true iPhone moment that Saylor is talking about, because the sale is not massive yet in terms of what their market is demanding, and we don't know how that will go in Japan.
Also with respect to Metaplanet's process, right? Like the fine print disclaimer in their presentation last night, alluded to the process, which is in motion, but there's definitely steps of the process if they intend to list these products that have not commenced. And so you don't know how long that process takes. So even before we get to the distribution stage and can they get these products sold, it's like, can they get these products listed? And so it's just a matter of a little bit of uncertainty in terms of the time frame. But I am confident that, there's nothing more that, there's nothing, Simon and Dylan are probably focused on nothing, more important than this.
Yeah, absolutely. Zynx, SWC, is it in your opinion the best risk reward right now, or top 10? What are we doing? What's your thoughts?
It's top 10. That's very easy. So when it comes to, what, I'm biased, so I'll just put that out there. And I think I have a good understanding of UK capital markets. So my insight is probably better than most, especially compared to international investors. I'm very bullish on smarter web, and the trajectory is clear. Like in my head, the vision to FTSE 250 is all but guaranteed, and it's only a matter of time before it gets to FTSE 100. When he gets onto the FTSE 250, so much capital is going to come in. The stock is going to be tradable on, a platform called Trading 212, which is where all the retail degens are on. And we've got the community for, a real bubble here, but not in a bad way, but like, for MNAV expansion to happen, there's lots of factors. With that being said, how I manage my portfolio, I limit, when it comes to risk and when it comes to sizing, if you're dealing with, a decent amount of capital, I think risk adjusted, because Metaplanet is 10x the size of Smarter Web, you'd have to say risk adjusted that Metaplanet is less likely to go to zero. They've reached sort of an escape velocity where they've got to 25,000 Bitcoin and beyond, where they're at 30,000 now, and they've got the preferreds. The route is clear. With Smarter Web, I'd say the risk it's decreasing by the day, but it's getting to 25,000 Bitcoin to then get into the preferreds, which again, I expect them to perform very, very well in the UK, especially with the distribution. So, and another company I like as well is Capital B. And outside of strategy, these three companies I would say are the golden trio, with just how they're operating. And so when it comes to risk adjusted, it's hard. I'd probably say I would choose, if you're dealing with a sizable portfolio, you wouldn't, just when it comes to liquidity and stuff and trading volumes, you have to manage that. But if you asked me who would outperform in the stock price, 100%, I'm choosing Smarter Web simply because of the size and scale and, the path to the FTSE 250, FTSE 100. So if I've got £100,000 and I'm going for a punt, I'm putting that all in Smarter Web. But let's say if you're managing, £10 million, it's a bit harder because of the size of the market cap, trading volume, liquidity. But yes, long story short, I like both. Smarter Web, this is not financial advice. If I had to pick who will outperform, between now and the end of the year, I definitely choose smart web.
So speaking of risks, if MNAV goes to 1, they're not big enough yet to launch the preferreds, maybe, or at least we know from Andrew and Jesse that it's expensive to launch the preferreds. It's a separate IPO in UK. What should SWC do if MNAV goes to 1? How are they going to defend it at this time when they do not have preferreds? That's the only risk really I can see. I spoke with Ragnar yesterday, and it like I've been saying the same thing, that SWC is a little bit further out on the risk curve than MetaPlanet. It also has the higher reward there. But what risks are there? I can't see anything else than what will they do if MNAV goes to 1?
Good question. I say there's multiple things that the company can do. The first thing they can do, they can just sit and wait. So because they have the benefit of having a profitable operating business, of course, as expenses has increased, they're going to need to expand that to keep up. But they've also got Smarter Convert, which again is a Bitcoin denominated bond. We've only seen this in the UK and in Europe, where even if MNAV is at 0.8, what they can do is they can issue a Smarter Convert at a 30% premium, which is again above a 1 MNAV. So they can take on leverage at an MNAV below 1 and still make it accretive to shareholders. So they've got that in their locker. And I also think if MNAV did, go below 1 for a sustained period of time, I'm sure, I've said maybe run a CSP strategy that MetaPlanet have done, but they're still thinking about it. They're on the fence of that about it. There's certain tax reasons. MetaPlanet had other catalysts to do, Bitcoin cash secured puts. So it's a difficult one, but definitely I'd say number 1 would be the Smarter Converts, which allows them to accumulate Bitcoin accretively, even if MNAV is trading below 1.
Right. So let me ask you things, because I was thinking about that as well. And then I was thinking, well, these Smarter Converts convert currently the existing one only 5% above the existing stock price. So I was thinking, well, it's like selling stock almost at MNAV 1, which is not very accretive. But I guess what you're saying is that it's taking on leverage at a point where Bitcoin and the stock both likely are very suppressed, and taking on leverage just means you have more upside. You move faster to the upside, both directions, obviously.
The worst thing, no, there's no downside. This is the beautiful thing about the Bitcoin denominated bonds. If they don't convert, they just give the Bitcoin back. Again, it's something I'm absolutely bewildered why we've not seen this in the US. We've not seen this around the world. Capital B deserve big props for this. It's honestly the best piece of financial engineering that I've seen in the space since strategy. So essentially the low premium at 5% and shorter duration was probably because Tobam got away with an amazing deal. It was the first one for smart web. But if you look at Capital B, they managed to have longer duration, 5 years, 30% premium. And Andrew has already spoken that, when they plan to do another Smarter Convert, they're going to perhaps look at extending the duration, but also increasing the premium. So if MNAV was to go to 0.8, it's no problem. They can still raise and buy Bitcoin, accretively through the Smarter Convert, which again, absolutely banging product, in my opinion.
Agree.
And also, let's not forget that SWC in the quarter that just finished, trying to learn to speak English here, probably never will, but the quarter that just finished, SWC yielded, according to their own numbers, 278%. So it's almost a quadrupling of the sats per stock. And I don't think that there's any treasury company that existed prior to Q3, came into Q3 with a base level of Bitcoin that have yielded that much. H100 is very close. I know Ragnar has done some calculations where he's taking other things into account. There's warrants, and I don't know which one is the 100% correct way of doing it, but it's that ballpark regardless, right? Like significantly above 200%. There's been no other treasury company yielding that much, right? Again, H100 very close.
In the most
Q3.
recent quarter, no.
Yeah. And again, that says something about Andrew's, I think, execution and the demand in the local market, the community, right, Zynx?
Yeah, and if you just look at the, Bitcoin B, Nick, he's got a website, tracking all these things, and he's got something called the Bitcoin accumulation race. And it just shows you how much Bitcoin each company has gotten to after a certain amount of days. Smarter Web is by far the fastest. It took them less than 3 months to get to 1,000 Bitcoin. It took Metaplanet 6 months. Obviously, conditions have changed and things are different now, but it just goes to show you that when the conditions are right, the team know how to strike and take advantage of the opportunity. When the IPO happened at the end of April, there was a raise week after week after week, getting progressively bigger. 3 million, 6 million, 12 million, 21 million, 44 million. It was a remarkable 6 weeks. And, if sentiment returns and trading volume returns with that ATM and, LSE uplisting, these guys will execute. Andrew will execute. The guy works harder than almost anyone in the space. If you call him, he will chat to you. You'll email him, he will reply to you. He'll be up at midnight, 1 a.m. He came back from an event. What event was it? The Unconference in New York. And he went straight to a UK event on no sleep. So Saylor said, didn't he, that buying these equities, you're betting on people at the end of the day.
100%.
And
100%.
The similarities between, it's funny because Andrew's story needs to be more well known. Remember, he was the head of online at HL, which is the UK's biggest broker, which is where he will then distribute his preferred through, it's a beautiful story. But he created Smart Web in 2009. This is his life's work. This is his legacy. This is where his wealth is tied up into. So it's not just another payday. It's not just another opportunity. This is him now. And this is, he's going to live and die by, Smarter Web, and it's his baby. So the energy is just different. How he cares about it, in a way, is similar to how Saylor cares about strategy. They've been with their companies, they built it themselves, and that's why people are willing to get behind them.
Yeah. So with the yield, to me, I was excited going into Q3 because I want to see Metaplanet yield compared to Capital B, compared to SWC. I guess at the time when we entered Q2, I mean, things are so rapid. I did not at the entry of Q3 hold SWC or H100. That was the 17th of June. I bought SWC. But for me, entering again a new quarter, very excited to see how SWC will perform, H100, Metaplanet, and then Orange BTC, that full disclaimer I'm advising, will start trading mid next week in Brazil. They have 3,600 Bitcoin. Very excited, obviously, to see what can that market support there. So I think that those are probably the three that I expect the highest yield from, having crossed 1,000 Bitcoin, or even 500, or maybe even 100. SWC, H100, and Orange BTC. Yeah, exciting quarter. It's fun to be invested in this space.
Well,
despite the downturn, I think it's fun.
It's amazing. When we're talking about companies likely to reach 100,000 Bitcoin, if you think outside of the US and you look at the best capital markets. The UK is next, right? London, maybe not, it's not quite as high as it used to be, but it's still outside of New York, maybe and then you've got Tokyo as well and Hong Kong. So if you're going to bet on, a capital market outside of the US, I think the route is clear, and I'm totally backing Smart Web to reach 100,000 Bitcoin, and I think it's very, very possible. So
I think they will. Yeah, I agree. Like in the bullish case, I laid out early on this stream, and a lot of people have joined since then. Thank you to about 380 live viewers across X and YouTube. While Bitcoin can do a 200x, I see Smarter Web doing essentially a 6,000x in fiat terms from here to when Bitcoin reaches 200x from here, around $25 million. If they reach half their target, if they reach their full target of 210,000 Bitcoin, that's a 12,000x. It's not every day you pass opportunities like that. It's probably worth a little bit of exposure, not financial advice, and everything can go to zero.
Right. But I do think too, like as investors, and you look across like the landscape of Bitcoin treasury companies, there's definitely, the narrative that there should be a Bitcoin treasury company in, every region, or multiple Bitcoin treasury companies in every region. But from an investor perspective, like it's my personal opinion that I don't need to own all of them, right? I'm going to own 1, 2, maybe 3, the best. And over time, maybe that concentrates further. But I do think having Bitcoin treasuries in different regions is important to help further educate and promote Bitcoin around the world. But I don't think you have to necessarily own everyone.
Oh, agree.
Avoid Canada. Sorry, guys. The Canadian equities do not touch.
I have heard that before, and outside of the Bitcoin treasury space. That's feedback that I have heard from other people in other sectors with respect to that particular market.
I'm sorry, guys, that was unnecessary, but I've never touched a Canadian equity until this Bitcoin treasuries thing, and I just don't want to do it ever again.
Yeah, you got burned a little bit there, and I know.
Yeah, yeah. And also I think is very important to, when you're just not Canada but everywhere else, is in a way you want a jurisdiction that has mandated capital for that country so that it can't escape. Otherwise everyone would just, flee to America, right? Because you guys have the best companies and these sort of things. Whereas when I done my research into Canada, is that the Canadian pension funds, one of the largest ones, had most of their investments in America. So it's just like, I don't think that sort of thing would run fully in the UK. There's a certain level of protectionism. We do have a lot of investments, of course, in the US, but there is mandated funds, which is very, very important because that's the trapped pool of capital that these companies can. You see, he said can't buy SWC on trading 212. Now, when SWC uplists to the London Stock Exchange, then the stock will be available to buy on trading 212. And this is the most popular sort of new school 20s and 30s would be using that platform.
And the only thing with that is, so what I wrote in the chat, when I saw that open a new account somewhere else, maybe, I mean, if you want to buy now, because between here and the uplisting, not financial advice, and it may not happen, but it is within the realms of possibilities that SWC does 3x, 4x before that happens, right? Not saying it will, but I'm such a FOMO investor. Once I see something, I can't sit on the sidelines. I need to own it ASAP, and dollar cost averaging is very hard for me. So yeah, what else should we've been going for a little bit more than an hour. I'm loving this. I'm having fun. We have covered all the points that I had written up beforehand, but take it away with if there's further points you guys want to get across, Khristina and Zynx.
I think we covered it from my perspective.
Zynx?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty much everything. Just don't underestimate how much of a local champion SWC is, how, well regarded Andrew is, how well regarded Jesse is, how people appreciate the execution, the commitment to smarter web, how strong the community is, strongest on X. So much goodwill is there. And also don't fade the the eventual preferreds in the long run. The UK is primed for a Bitcoin-backed fixed income product. And for those concerned about the UK political situation, like I said, this will not affect SmartWeb whatsoever. Worst case scenario, the company will just go to one of our autonomous overseas territories and headquarter there and pay no tax. So overall, things are looking good for SmartWeb.
Absolutely. Sweet.
And can I'm going to plug my
Yes, and I'm gonna do it by saying, what do you guys want to share here as a final comments and thoughts, and I want you things to talk about your new initiative, but let's go, ladies first, and then stick around for what Zynx is working on. How about that?
Would just say have conviction in what you own, be patient. Vol feels great on the way up, super painful on the way down. But I don't think, the good times are over for good. I think we're definitely going to have days where things start to look a lot better across the sector.
Yeah, I agree completely. Just renew your conviction every so often, and no crying at the casino, okay?
Love it. I love that one. Stefan Levera told me that in Prague. I never heard it before, but I love it. No crying in the casino.
Yeah. Just leverage Bitcoin equity. You get the volatility, the price you pay for the outsized returns, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, Zynx. What are you working on? Exciting. Both me and Khristina love the idea of what you started just within a few days ago, and we spoke about it in Saturday. Tell us.
So I launched Sovereign 21, which is a play of, being a sovereign individual. I'm not sure if you guys read that book, but it's a famous British book. All Bitcoiners would love it. And initially, the idea came up from these Bitcoin denominated bonds, actually. I wanted to do one and put in a couple, not too much, but like a couple million into a smart convert or into capital B. But the problem was that for these companies, it wouldn't have been worth it. So my idea was, okay, well, we need to get some Bitcoiners together. Let's say if there's 10 of us, okay, that's $20 million or $10 million, then it becomes worth it for the company. And then that snowballed into a wider thing. I started talking with other Bitcoiners, quite other prominent, people on X, and came to the idea that actually there's no private investor network for Bitcoiners in the world that's focused on Bitcoin treasury companies, native Bitcoin businesses, and or simply just profitable businesses that put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And there was a real demand for that community with motivated individuals, let's just say, to motivated Bitcoiners to create this. And yeah, it's currently got, I think, 54 members now, very, names that you would all know. We've got doctors, hedge fund owners, head of Bitcoin strategy for one of the companies. We've got high net worth individuals, just lots of prominent people in the space. And the goal is eventually, if it's 1,000 people, 5,000 people, get a sailor involved, president of El Salvador involved, it would turn into some sort of decentralized VC where companies can come and just pitch themselves to the group. You as a sovereign individual, if you want to get involved or not, It's up to you. And more importantly, over the next 10 years, a lot of wealth is going to be created. You know, if you're rich now, you're going to be super rich in 10 years. If you're involved as a Bitcoiner in the Bitcoin treasury space, if you're pre-rich, you're going to be rich. Simply, you know, just a lot of wealth is going to be created. So a part of it is also philanthropy. You know, if there's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 well-motivated Bitcoiners with a lot of capital, current net worth assets under management is roughly, you know, well over $300 million now. In 10 years time, in a bigger network with a 10x on Bitcoin, that could be what, $100 billion worth of net worth between, you know, 1,000 people, 2,000 people, and the good that we can change in the world with that is, you know, it sounds pretty cool to me. A lot of people liked it, so I was like, you know what, why not, let's just do it. And it's called Sovereign 21. You
I
can
think
check.
it's fantastic. I think it might paused.
No, you're good. Well, we can hear you. You have a smile on screen. That's sweet, but
I paused a second. I was going to say, it sounds like Zynx, you're going to have to dox yourself at some point.
I don't want to do that. That's the thing.
If you're like starting this whole business with all of these people, you're going to probably have to like.
No, anyone who wants to lead the in-person stuff and wants to do that, you can do it and you'll get paid for it. I don't want to. I'm good. I just wanted to build the network and be the admin. There is a 50% affiliate link for everyone that if you join and you got a friend to join, you can, you know, it's this is not going to make a dent in humbly in my net worth, but I'm thinking in the long term collectively, if there's 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people and, you know, Bitcoin's at $1 million a coin, then in a sense, it's almost like a virtual network state of well-motivated Bitcoiners. And, you know, who knows, maybe we'll fund new businesses together, start new ones. The community is already active. People are meeting each other. New initiatives. Maybe we'll fund a coffee shop that runs on Bitcoin in Indonesia, or a new treasury company in South Africa. There's lots of possibilities with a well-motivated network of like-minded people. So yeah, read my pin post if you're interested, and we'll see where that
Zynx,
goes.
if people want to go sign up, what's the domain name?
So currently it's on a school platform. We're currently building our website, but currently if school, so skool.com/sovereign21, and it should come up. Or you can just go to my Twitter bio, it's in there. Again, demand has been, you know, I wasn't expecting it to be like this. And a lot of people, a lot of Bitcoiners have a lot of wealth already. And I think they're just looking to do something with it. And you can only imagine over the next 10 years, you know, the future is ours. The future belongs to Bitcoiners. So that's the purpose.
Amen. Yeah, excited for that, Zynx. I may have to join your club there.
Honestly, everyone's welcome. You'll love it.
For sure.
Oh, it's $79 per month. There is other perks as well. It's not just a network. Of course, that is the main value proposition, but I will be producing like a monthly Bitcoin treasury report. I'm going to make it the best in the world. Have macro analysis, and also there will be like a spotlight section at the end for any members in the community. If you've got any interesting business proposals or initiatives, you know, I can put that in there. There's so many things with having a well-motivated network. But yeah, I'll stop shilling now. Sorry, guys. Had to be done.
No, it's
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Fantastic. I love the, you know, the potential end game or part of the game being charitable
Yeah, that's
work.
definitely will be a big part of it. So yeah, appreciate that.
So yeah, no, thank you very much, both Khristina and Zynx. Another great show. I think we did together here. A quick shout out to John Harbour that I learned in the chat today has ancestors from Denmark. So shout out to you, John. Thank you guys, and thank you for the, what are we at, more than 400 live viewers across X and YouTube. Thank you for joining. There'll be more content likely, I guess, this week in the Treasury space from my account, but definitely next week. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for participating in the chat. Also, special shout out to the wonderful community of SWC, which we all love here. And see you soon. Cheers.
Thank you, guys.